The radio frequency crackled with static as Captain Nathan Cross sat in the command chair of the UNSS Valiant. It was an old ship, one of humanity's first real deep space vessels. Not fancy, not advanced by galactic standards, but it was human-made, and that meant it was built to last. The message came through at 0300 hour station time. The voice on the other end was broken and rough. Governor Amy Peterson of Colony 7 spoke with the tone of someone who knew they were about to die. "This is Governor Peterson. This is a Priority 1 distress signal. The Krell Empire has invaded. They came without warning. They came without mercy. My people are dying. My soldiers are falling. We need help. We need anyone. We need you." The transmission cut to static, then started again. "If anyone hears this, send help. We have 30,000 civilians here. We have soldiers. We have weapons. But the Krell are too many. Their ships are too big. Their weapons burn through our armor like it is paper. We are losing ground every hour. Send help. Please send help." Nathan Cross leaned forward in his chair. His hands gripped the metal armrest so hard, his knuckles turned white. Around him, his bridge crew stared at their screens. The information was bad. Really bad. Commander Elena Vasquez looked up from her navigation console. Her dark eyes met Nathan's. She was the best pilot he had ever worked with. She came from a farming family in the rural parts of Texas. Her hands could move a ship through space, like a dancer moved across a floor. "Captain, we are 14 hours away from Colony 7 at maximum speed," Elena said. Her voice was calm, but Nathan could hear the worry underneath. "What is the Krell fleet size?" Nathan asked. Chief Engineer Robert Hayes spoke from his station near the back of the bridge. Robert was an older man, maybe 55. With gray hair and hands that had built and fixed more machines than most people could count. He had spent his whole life learning how to squeeze power out of engines. "Based on the sensor data from the colony, we are looking at a capital ship, maybe 3 cruisers, and at least 20 fighter craft. Our ship can take damage, but we are not built for war. We are built for exploration." Nathan nodded slowly. He already knew this. The Valiant was not a warship. It was a research vessel. The UN's Valiant had been sent out to explore new star systems and map unknown space. It carried scientists and engineers and pilots. It did not carry soldiers or weapons designed for heavy combat. Tactical Officer Marcus Stone leaned back in his chair. Marcus was young, maybe 32 years old, with short dark hair and the kind of focused mind that could see patterns in chaos. He had trained at the military academy on Mars. He knew how to fight, even when the odds were terrible. "Captain, if we go in there, we could die," Marcus said. It was not a question. It was a fact. "I know," Nathan replied. "The Galactic Council will not back us up. The Council already decided that the colonies are not worth defending. They said the resources would be wasted on a losing fight. They will not send a fleet." Nathan stood up from his chair. He walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, past the black void, people were dying. Real people. Humans like him. They had built a colony on a hostile world. They had worked hard. They had made families. And now the Krell were burning their homes and killing their children. "Do we follow our orders?" Nathan asked. His voice was quiet but strong. "Do we sail past Colony 7 and pretend we did not hear the distress call? Do we go back to headquarters and tell them that we heard people dying and we did nothing?" Elena stood up. "No, Captain. That is not who we are." Robert nodded. "I can push the engines harder. I can get us there faster. The engines will be strained, but they will not break. Not yet anyway." Marcus looked at the tactical display again. He was calculating odds, running through scenarios in his head. Nathan knew what he was thinking because he was thinking the same thing. They had no chance. Not really. But they had to try. "We go," Nathan said simply. The bridge crew moved into action. Elena's fingers flew across her navigation console. Robert raced down to the engine room to boost power. Marcus started running combat simulations, trying to figure out even one scenario where they could win on. Nathan sent out a message of his own back to Earth Command. He told them that the UNSS Valiant was responding to the distress call from Colony 7. He told them that they would do everything possible to help the colonists. He did not tell them the odds. He did not tell them that Command would probably court-martial him for acting without orders. He simply told them what he was doing and why. The Valiant began to accelerate. Nathan felt the shift in the ship's motion. The engines hummed louder. The vessel shook slightly as Robert pushed the systems beyond their normal limits. Over the next hours, more messages came from Colony 7. The situation grew worse. Governor Peterson reported that the main colony settlement was under direct attack. The Krell had landed troops. The human defenders were being pushed back street by street. Then a new voice came through the radio. It was a child, maybe 8 or 9 years old, crying and scared. "I do not know how to work this. My mother told me to send a message. Can anyone help? The big ships are burning the city. The people are running. My mother told me to say that we are scared. My mother told me to say, help us. Help us, please. Please help us." The transmission ended. Nathan closed his eyes. He thought of that child. He thought of the fear in that small voice. He thought of all the children in Colony 7 who were feeling that same fear right now. Elena watched him from her console. "We will make it, Captain. I will get us there." "I know you will," Nathan said. The ship pushed forward through the darkness of space. 14 hours away. The colony was dying in real time. And humanity's only response was a single ship with a crew of 87 people. But Nathan Cross had grown up on Earth. He had learned long ago that Earth did not train humans to give up. Earth did not teach people to accept the impossible. Earth taught survival. It taught persistence. It taught the kind of stubborn refusal to die that came from living on a world where everything was trying to kill you. The UN's Valiant cut through the void, racing toward a war it could not win but would not abandon. Governor Amy Peterson stood on the observation deck of the evacuation ship and watched her world die. Below, the city of New Seattle was covered in flames. Buildings that had taken 5 years to construct fell into rubble in minutes. The Krell ships moved through the atmosphere like hunters circling prey. She had maybe 2 hours before the Krell landed their troops in force. Maybe 2 hours to get the remaining civilians off the planet. She had already evacuated 15,000 people. Another 10,000 waited in the shelters, hoping someone would come to save them. But no one was coming. The Galactic Council had made its decision. Humanity was new. Humanity was weak. The resources to defend Colony 7 would be wasted. The Council said this while sitting safely in their high stations, protected by generations of military strength. Amy Peterson did not cry. She had passed crying a long time ago. Now there was only work. There was only the endless task of saving whoever she could save. Her defense commander, Major William Cross, entered the observation deck. He looked worse than she felt. His uniform was torn. His face was covered in soot and blood. He had been fighting on the ground until 10 minutes ago, when she ordered him to fall back and coordinate the evacuation. "Governor, we have lost the outer perimeter," William said. "The Krell are advancing toward the main shelters. We can hold them maybe 1 hour, maybe less. How many soldiers do we have left?" Amy asked. 430. We started with 2,000. The Krell weapons are too powerful. Our armor does not hold. Our weapons barely scratch their ships." Amy nodded. She had expected this answer. She had known from the beginning that fighting the Krell was hopeless. But she had to try anyway. If she did not try, more people would die faster. Get everyone out of the shelters. Put them on the evacuation ship. I do not care if we are over capacity. I do not care if they have to stand. Get them out. Yes, Governor, William said. He turned to leave, then paused. We received something on the radio. A message from a human ship called the UNSS Valiant. They say they are coming to help. Amy turned from the window. One ship? Yes, Governor. One human exploration vessel. Amy closed her eyes. One ship against the entire Krell fleet. It was suicide. It was beautiful and hopeless and utterly pointless. But it was something. It was one more human who had decided to fight instead of run. How long until they arrive? She asked. 3 hours, maybe 4. The captain did not give a precise time. 3 to 4 hours. The Krell would have full control of the planet in 2 hours. The evacuation ship would be in space by then, but the Krell had ships that could follow. The fleeing civilians would be hunted as they tried to escape below. In the colony, Major William Cross organized the final evacuation. He sent soldiers through the streets, knocking on doors, pushing people toward the evacuation centers. Some came willingly. Some had to be carried. Some refused to leave their homes. One old man, a farmer named Joseph, stood in front of his house. He had built it with his own hands. He had planted trees around it that had grown tall and green. His wife had died here. His children had been born here. I am not leaving, Joseph said. William grabbed his arm. Sir, you have to move. The Krell will be here in minutes. Let them come. This is my home. I am staying. William wanted to argue. He wanted to force the old man into the evacuation transport. But there was no time. There were hundreds of other people who still needed to move. He left Joseph standing in his yard, surrounded by his memories. Above, in space, the Krell commander called himself General Zaxter. He was an old warrior, and he had destroyed 17 civilizations in his career. Each time was the same. The local forces resisted. The Krell fleet overwhelmed them. The survivors were enslaved or destroyed. The world became Krell property. Colony 7 would be the 18th. It was a small victory. The humans had only recently learned to use spacecraft. They had no real military. It would be easy. Zaxter watched from the bridge of his capital ship as his forces closed in. The human evacuation shuttles were leaving the planet, fleeing toward an old cargo ship that served as the evacuation vessel. Zaxter ordered his fighters to pursue. The humans would not escape. They would be hunted until the last one was dead. It was simple logic. It was complete confidence based on countless victories. Then the sensors picked up something new. A human ship was entering the system at high speed. Zaxter studied it on his tactical display. It was small. It was old. It was the kind of ship that should never approach a Krell battle group. It was the kind of ship that would be destroyed in moments. Zaxter smiled. Another human vessel to add to his list of victories. He had no idea what he was looking at. He did not understand that this small, old ship was crewed by beings from a world that had taught them to fight like animals cornered in a den. He did not know that humanity's greatest strength was not in size or weapons or numbers. Humanity's greatest strength was the willingness to charge into the dark against impossible odds. The UNSS Valiant emerged from faster-than-light space, and Captain Nathan Cross saw the full scale of the disaster below. The colony was burning. The Krell fleet was huge. His ship was tiny. Nathan looked at his crew. Elena sat at the helm with her hands already moving across the controls. Robert stood ready in the engine room, waiting for orders. Marcus had his tactical display open, already running calculations. "Elena, plot an attack course," Nathan said. "Where are we going, Captain?" Elena asked. "Straight at them," Nathan replied. "We are going to hit them hard and fast. We are going to make them regret ever coming to this colony." Elena nodded. She had already started plotting the course. Marcus looked up. "We will not win, sir. Not against those numbers." "No," Nathan agreed. "But we will make them hurt before we go down. And maybe that will be enough. Maybe that will give the evacuation ship time to escape. Maybe we will save those 30,000 people. That is all that matters now." The Un's Valiant accelerated toward the Krell fleet. The first strike came from the Valiant's weapon systems. Missiles and energy blasts cut through space toward the nearest Krell cruiser. Most missed. The ones that hit barely scratched the alien hull. But they hit. They sent a message across the black void: "We are here. We are fighting. You will not have this colony unopposed." The Krell response was immediate and overwhelming. 3 cruisers turned to face the human ship. Their weapons came online. The vacuum of space filled with deadly light as energy beams reached out toward the Valiant. Elena Vasquez threw the ship into a dive that defied physics and common sense. She moved the vessel like it was an extension of her own body, feeling the forces, understanding the angles. The beams missed. Most of them. One caught the Valiant's starboard side, and the ship shook hard. Alarms began to sound all through the vessel. Robert Hayes was in the engine room, and he felt the impact like a punch to the gut. Coolant sprayed from a broken line. One of his crew members, a young engineer named Derek, raced to seal the breach. "We took damage on the starboard side," Robert yelled into the communication system. "Hull integrity at 92%. We can take more, but not much more." Nathan Cross gripped the arms of his command chair. "Marcus, return fire." "Elena, keep us moving. Do not let them lock onto us." Marcus fired the Valiant's weapons again. This time, he aimed at a different target, a Krell fighter that was trying to get behind them. The human ship was small and maneuverable. It could not match the Krell in raw firepower, but it could move in ways the Krell had never expected. The fighter exploded. For a moment, there was silence on the bridge. Then Elena let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. "We got one," Marcus said, and his voice sounded surprised. "We actually got one." But there was no time to celebrate. The Krell fleet was converging. More fighters were being launched from the capital ship. More cruisers were moving to intercept. The odds were getting worse by the second. Down on Colony 7, Governor Peterson watched the battle unfold on her screens. She saw the Valiant dart and weave through Krell fire. She saw the small human ship fighting against impossible numbers. "Sir," her aide, a young woman named Karen, spoke softly. "There is a message from the surface. It is from the last evacuation point." Karen played the message. It was Major William Cross, and he was still fighting. His voice was tight with strain, but it was steady. "Governor, we have the last civilians moving toward the landing pads. We have maybe 5 minutes before the Krell ground forces reach the evacuation site. I am pulling back my soldiers to hold them off. If that captain up there in the Valiant can buy us time, we might get out." The transmission ended. Governor Peterson felt something break inside her chest. She had made the decision to stay behind to coordinate the evacuation. But others had made the same choice. Real soldiers. Real people who had decided to stand and fight so that civilians could run. On the Valiant. The battle was becoming desperate. Nathan had ordered Elena to take evasive action that pushed the ship far beyond safe parameters. The Valiant screamed through space, its metal frame vibrating as forces tore at it. Another energy beam caught them. this time on the port side. More alarms. More damage reports. Hull integrity 75%. Robert's voice came through the communication. Captain, if we take much more, the core will start to destabilize. I can hold it together, but not for long. How long? Nathan asked. Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe 15 if I dump the cargo bay and reduce power to non-essential systems. Nathan made the decision instantly. Do it. Dump everything? We do not need it. We need the engines, and we need the weapons. Below, the evacuation shuttles were lifting off. 6 of them, carrying 30,000 people in close quarters. They were slow. They were vulnerable. But they were moving up and away from the colony. The Krell saw them and moved to intercept. That was when Nathan Cross made his choice. He ordered Elena to position the Valiant between the evacuation shuttles and the Krell interceptors. She did it without question. The human ship moved into the firing line, putting itself between the Krell weapons and the fleeing civilians. The Krell fired. The Valiant took the full force of 3 energy beams and 1 missile volley all at once. The ship bucked and twisted. Entire sections of the hull were exposed to space. The bridge shook so hard that Nathan was thrown from his chair. Elena caught him with one hand while keeping the other on the helm controls, flying blind through pain and chaos. We are hit, Marcus screamed. Multiple systems down. Weapons offline. Engines at 50%. But the evacuation shuttles were clear now. They were accelerating toward deep space, beyond the reach of the Krell fighters. Nathan pulled himself back to his feet, blood running down the side of his face from a gash on his forehead. Elena, can you still fly this thing? He asked. Elena's hands trembled on the controls, but her voice was steady. Yes, Captain. I can fly. Then we are not done yet, Nathan said. We are not done until those people are safe. Marcus, weapon status. Coming back online. Maybe 60% functionality. Then we use it, Nathan said. We keep fighting. We keep them busy. We keep them focused on us and not on the evacuation ships. And he opened a channel on all frequencies. Every Krell ship could hear what he was about to say. So could Governor Peterson and the fleeing colonists and the soldiers still fighting on the planet below. Nathan Cross spoke with the voice of a human from Earth. A world that had taught its children to fight when they had no hope of winning. This is Captain Nathan Cross of the UNSS Valiant. I am here to tell you that you have made a mistake. You came to this world expecting easy victory. You expected helpless prey. But the people you are fighting come from a world where predators hunt and prey learns to fight back. We come from Earth. It is a death world. And every human aboard my ship has learned what it means to survive in a place where everything tries to kill you. He paused, letting his words cross the void. You can destroy my ship. You will probably destroy my ship. But before you do, you will learn what happens when a Deathworlder refuses to die. You will learn what happens when human stubbornness meets alien pride. And that lesson will cost you more than you ever expected to pay. The Valiant dove back into the fight. General Zaxter watched the human ship move against his fleet. He had never seen anything like it. The Valiant should have been destroyed already. It was smaller than his smallest fighter. Its weapons were inferior. It should have been dead, yet it moved with purpose. It moved like something that understood how to fight when it had no right to fight. Zaxter ordered his entire fleet to focus on the human vessel. Every weapon, every ship, concentrated firepower that should have obliterated the Valiant in seconds. But Elena Vasquez was flying a ship that came from Earth. She understood how to move through danger. She understood that sometimes the only way to survive was to move faster and more unpredictably than your enemy expected. Her hands flew across the controls. and the Valiant danced through the Krell weapon's fire like a creature fighting for its life. Robert Hayes pushed the engines beyond their limits. The reactor core was screaming. The systems were failing. But he kept pushing, kept demanding more power, kept refusing to let the engines shut down. "Robert, status?" Nathan called down to the engine room. "Captain, I have diverted all non-essential power to the main engines. We are running hot. The systems are starting to fail. I would give us maybe 5 minutes before something critical breaks. Can you keep us moving for 5 minutes?" "Yes, sir. I can keep us moving for 5 minutes." "Then that is all we need." Nathan said. Marcus Stone was feeding Elena targeting information, helping her understand where the Krell ships were moving, predicting their patterns. Marcus had grown up on Mars, on a colony where you had to understand systems to survive. He understood how things moved and worked. He understood the logic of combat. The Valiant fired again. And this time, the Krell Armada responded differently. One of the Krell cruisers moved to intercept what it thought was an incoming missile. But it misjudged the angle. It moved into the firing line of another Krell ship. The two vessels collided with the kind of force that shattered hulls and killed thousands. It was not because the humans were stronger. It was because the humans had forced the Krell to fight without logic. They had forced them to react instead of plan. They had forced them to abandon their careful, coordinated patterns and respond to chaos. The Krell Armada began to fragment. More friendly fire. More collisions. More mistakes born from panic and desperation. One Krell fighter tried to pursue the evacuation shuttle that carried Major William Cross and the last civilians from Colony 7. The fighter moved in for the kill. Weapons charging. Then the UNSS Valiant materialized between them. Elena had calculated the exact angle and trajectory. Robert had given her the speed. Marcus had predicted where the fighter would be. And the Valiant arrived at that precise point in space at that exact moment. The human ship rammed the Krell fighter. Head dash on. The fighter exploded. The Valiant took severe damage from the impact but did not break apart. Elena had known the ship would survive. She had known its limits. She had known exactly how much punishment it could absorb. The evacuation shuttle escaped. "Captain, we are out of time." Robert's voice came through the communication, weak and strained. "The core is destabilizing. I am venting all remaining power. We have maybe 2 minutes before the engines go dark." Nathan made one final decision. "Elena, plot a course through the center of the Krell formation." Elena looked up from her console, understanding what he was asking. "Yes, sir," she said. The Valiant turned and accelerated directly at the gathering of Krell ships. It moved toward them with all the strength Robert could pull from dying engines. It moved through them, scattering them, forcing them to split apart and abandon their formation. The human ship passed through the entire Krell Armada without weapons, without shields, running on pure determination and the will to refuse defeat. When the engines finally died, the Krell fleet was in chaos. Ships were damaged. Formation was broken. Command and control had collapsed. The coordinated assault on Colony 7 had been shattered by a single human vessel that had done the impossible because it had not known it was impossible. And more than that, something had changed in the Krell commander's mind. General Zaxter realized with absolute certainty that he could not win this fight. Not today. Not against enemies who would charge into the dark. Against any odds. He ordered the Krell fleet to withdraw. The evacuation shuttles were already in deep space, accelerating toward the coordinates where the evacuation transport was waiting. All 30,000 civilians were escaping. All of them. Every one. The Valiant drifted in space, its engines dead, its hull pierced in a dozen places, its weapons offline. But it was still there. It was still defiant. And somewhere in the darkness above Earth, the legend of the Deathworlders was being born. The Ons Valiant was towed back to Colony 7 by the evacuation transport. The ship limped in, damaged and broken, but still flying. The skeleton crew that remained aboard had managed to bring enough life support back online to survive. Nathan Cross walked out of the medical bay 14 hours later with bandages covering his ribs and his left arm in a sling. The Krell beam that had burned through the starboard side of the ship had come close to killing him. Close was enough in space. The crew was gathered in the main corridor to greet him. 87 people had left Earth. 75 were still alive. 12 had died in the battle. Another 12 might never walk again. Nathan looked at each of their faces. He saw Elena Vasquez sitting in a wheelchair, her legs badly burned when the bridge consoles had exploded. He saw Robert Hayes with his arm bandaged, having been caught in a steam release from the dying engine core. He saw Marcus Stone with his head in a sling after an impact had thrown him against a wall. They were broken, but they were alive. And more importantly, the people they had fought to protect were alive. Governor Peterson came to meet him in the command center of the evacuation ship. She was thinner than she had been, worn down by hours of coordinating the escape. But her eyes were clear. 30,472 people, she said. That is how many we saved. Because you came. Because your crew refused to abandon us. Nathan did not know what to say. He had done what felt right. He had fought because fighting was the only option that mattered. A week later, the first official report reached Earth Command. It was a complete record of everything that had happened at Colony 7. The attack, the evacuation, the impossible defense mounted by a single human ship. Earth Command did exactly what Nathan had expected. They convened a court-martial. They charged him with acting without authorization. They said he had violated orders and protocols. But something unexpected happened. The Galactic Council reviewed the case. And the Council made a decision that shocked the human leadership. They offered Nathan Cross a position, a military advisor, a permanent seat on the Defense Committee, a chance to reshape humanity's place in the galaxy. Nathan refused. Instead, he proposed something else. He proposed the creation of a new fleet. The Human Protective Fleet, a military force dedicated not to expanding human territory, but to defending the species and the worlds that the Council deemed expendable. The Council said no, but 5 other species volunteered to join the effort. Species that had seen what humanity could do. Species that understood that Deathworlders were not weak. Species that wanted to learn from the stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Nathan accepted their offer. The Human Protective Fleet became an alliance. A new force in the galaxy. A force built on the principle that survival meant standing with those who had no one else to stand with. 6 months after the battle, Nathan stood on the observation deck of a new ship. The Ons Valiant had been repaired and restored. It still bore the scars of battle. The hull showed the damage marks. The systems were rebuilt but not made new. The ship carried its history in its very structure. That was the point. This ship had fought the Krell and lived. This ship had carried humans into the dark against impossible odds. This ship was proof that the impossible was possible. Elena Vasquez had requested to remain as Nathan's pilot. She used a cane now, her legs still healing, but her hands still moved across the controls with the same grace and certainty. Robert Hayes had been promoted to Chief of Engineering for the entire Protective Fleet. He was training new engineers in the art of pushing ships beyond their limits. Marcus Stone was now Tactical Advisor for the entire Alliance. They were broken, but they were not defeated. They were changed, but they were not diminished. Below them, on Earth, the story had spread to every city and every country. The story of the Deathworlders who had asked for help and received it from their own people. The story of a captain and a crew who had charged into darkness. Schools taught the battle as history. Young people applied to join the military, wanting to be part of something that mattered. Humanity had changed. The galaxy had changed. The Krell Empire began to fragment under the weight of its losses. World after world that had been conquered began to resist. Because they had seen what one human ship could do. They had seen that the Krell could be beaten. On a small farm in the American Midwest, Nathan's mother watched the news feeds. She saw her son's face. She saw the medals and the honors. She saw the history being written in real time. She smiled. She had always known what the galaxy was only now beginning to understand. You cannot kill something that was born and raised on a death world. You cannot stop something that was taught from birth that survival meant fighting. Nathan Cross had grown up on Earth where predators hunted and prey learned to hunt back. Where rain could kill and storms could destroy, and yet life persisted. That was what made him dangerous. That was what made all humans dangerous. The Deathworlders had come to the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same again. End of story.